Good afternoon. Well, I might feel a little better knowing that you guys can't carry concealed in here. I think all of you probably feel a little more nervous because you guys can't carry concealed in here. Interesting fundamental divide on this idea. My name is Colin Goddard. 4 years ago, I was shot 4 times at Virginia Tech. I believe I was a victim of this gun crime because of a missing record in our background check system. I'm not a statistician or an academic. I don't have a nice thing to bring up here. I'm going to speak from personal experience in the past 4 years. You know, what I experienced that day was not like people see in movies. It was not like you can imagine in your mind. It's actually, you know, very easy to imagine what you do in hypothetical situations when you're calmly sitting in a chair, as opposed to being in the middle of one yourself. I have thought about that day, transpiring every single which way, from me saving the day to me getting killed. And the sooner that I can understand what happened, come to terms with what happened, the sooner I can move forward. I can relate to what people said earlier. You know, like I said, I spent almost a whole year thinking about that day over and over and over and over again. And like I said, we can hypothetical situations to the end of time, and they won't get us anywhere. So I think we should move forward from there. I've heard quite often the statement that if somebody would have been in there with a gun, people would still be alive today. People are so sure tell me in their mind what they would have done in that situation when they've never been in one themselves. And I find that statement somewhat offensive. The fact that you can so sure tell me when I guarantee you would lose your mind in something like that. Your body undergoes physiological changes when you're in a high-stress environment. And that is not something that you practice while standing comfortably at a range or even while watching a 1-hour video online. It's very different than in real life. You know, it was a normal Monday morning class for me. I was late. Got to class 5 minutes into class. About 20 minutes later, another girl came into class even later. And this is the girl who was always, you know, on time, one of the best students in the class. And as soon as she sat down in the front, we turned up to her and we're like, "Rachel, what gives? Why did we even come today? Class is almost over." And she turns back and she said, "Well, there was a shooting in my dorm this morning, and they had the whole place on lockdown. They wouldn't let me leave, despite the fact I was telling them I had class. I had to go to class. And finally, they gave me the clearance, and I left, and here I am." And we all turned to each other and were like, "What? There was a shooting on campus?" Like, what? You know, I had been up for almost an hour and a half at that point. Like, why haven't I heard anything about this? Why is she the one telling me what's going on? It was probably, I can't even remember, probably about 5 minutes after that where we first started hearing banging noises. Something you would immediately, raise alarm. But we had heard banging noises throughout the semester. There was a building being worked on right next to ours, so we had heard jackhammers, all sorts of knives, nail guns, things like that, and we chalked it up to more construction noise. Then they got much louder, much closer, and that's when somebody started thinking, you know, maybe this isn't what we thought it was. And by that point, the teacher was thinking the same thing. She went to the doorway to look into the hallway, and as soon as she opened the door, she slammed it shut, and she said, "Everyone underneath your desk," and somebody called 911. And this total disbelief. I mean, I had never been in a situation like that before. I had the phone there, and I dialed 911, and basically got out. I was in Norris Hall, think someone's shooting a gun, and then we had bullets coming through the door, and everybody hit the floor. I remember thinking for a split second I should make a move for the window, because that was a way out. There was only one door in our classroom. If I had been going through that window, though, I do believe I would have been killed, because those windows aren't easy to open, and within seconds he was in my room and shooting. So I didn't have an understanding of what was really happening, however, until I was shot the first time in my knee. That's when I came full circle. That's when I understood what was happening. Before that, I was in disbelief. I didn't understand. It was the stress and the intensity was beyond anything I could have imagined. And it was that gunshot, that feeling, that brought me back to reality. You know, there were other people, however, that did different things in Norris Hall. People who realized what that was and were actually able to stop Joe from entering their classroom by pushing doors in the way. My friend Derek laid on the ground with his feet against the door and saw bullets come over his head. And he actually stopped Joe from coming in and shooting the other kids in his class, because he understood what was happening. He had information that we didn't have, that didn't understand, we couldn't analyze. And so people think that, it's you're a sitting duck, it was everyone like me. No, not everybody was like me. Some people actually stopped themselves from getting shot, were actually able to do something. I, unfortunately, some of the people in my class, we didn't have time to go anywhere. Like I said, I generally don't like looking at this whole situation again with hypothetical situational scenarios that try to deal with this situation at the last possible second. We should be looking before this moment happens. Because when this moment happens, it is at the point where it becomes most uncontrollable. And I don't know why we're trying to control an event at the point where it becomes most uncontrollable, when we can do things beforehand that we're not doing here. It's dangerous to take a very complex situation and look at it very narrowly and say, a complex situation of a shooter on campus, a disturbed student shooting other students, and say that there's somebody going to come in the door and shoot you. Do you want a gun or not? You miss a whole bunch of that scenario when you look at it from that very, very narrow perspective. And I'm saying we need to broaden our perspective. We need to look past the last second. We need to look into the days and the weeks beforehand at the point where these persons purchased weapons, when these people put their plans together, where we could have intervened, when mental health officials actually spoke with the individuals, in the case of Virginia Tech, and chose not to fully follow up with the student until he no longer posed a threat. I am not comfortable with the status quo on college campuses right now. Don't think that I think things should remain the same. I absolutely think things should get better. But we need to do more preventative work. We should be proactive instead of reactive. Proactive in measures, like I said, with mental health, making sure that the students are followed up with until they no longer pose a threat. You should be preventative beforehand. Like I said, I was a victim of somebody whose background check record was not given from one agency to another agency. If that record would have changed hands, he would not have been able to purchase the gun from the store down the road from the internet. Then where would he have gone? I know he could have gone to the gun show down in Roanoke, went to a private seller and purchased those exact same weapons with no background check, no questions asked. That's what I'm trying to say. If you want to try to deal with shootings anywhere in our country, not only on college campuses, anywhere, we should be doing background checks on every single person. Since the past 4 years, at the beginning of all this issue, I hear guns don't kill people, it's people that kill people. Well, if you agree with that general statement, and I do, it's not guns that kill people, people kill people, then you will agree that we need to be checking those people. And we don't do that every time. And it's ridiculous the fact that you can literally be denied from one guy at a gun show, walk 2 tables over, and purchase that same gun with no background check. When I did that, with an undercover camera on my chest, I found out that those private sellers will actually charge you a premium for that gun being bought without a background check. They will charge you more. So one guy said, there's no tax, there's no paperwork. That's got to be worth something. And for people who are trying to evade a background check, trying to go under the system, that's worth a hell of a lot. And that's something that they'll pay. And I hear people say, the gun that I have with me, I never want to have to use this gun. It's the last thing I want to do. However, this is the first step you guys are discussing here. We need to be maxing out all other avenues, not only from mental health, from background check records, but having a lock on the door, having 2 doors in a classroom, having handles so they can't get chained shut so it stops police from coming in. Those things need to be looked at. That's what I'm trying to talk about. If we did all these things and we're still having problems, then we continue to look down the list. But don't go to the end of that list first. It's basically what I'm trying to say. That there are non-controversial, common sense things. So not only will stop violence, or help prevent violence on a college campus, but will help prevent violence just about anywhere. The one thing that I think that's happened recently, or the past year after year and state after state, that makes your argument more difficult for me to understand, is the fact that in state after state, it is becoming easier and easier to carry a concealed weapon, to get your permit. In Virginia, you can get your permit to carry a concealed weapon without ever shooting a gun. all right? How can you tell me that is someone that we should introduce with a gun into a college classroom? I fundamentally don't agree with that. There are my ROTC buddies, people I know who are over in Iraq, who are going to come over, and those are people I can understand at some point, the last line. But the other people that I know, my friend Lily, who's got a permit, who's never shot a gun in her life, I will not feel comfortable with her sitting next to me. I love that girl, but I'm sorry. And when the states are moving easier and easier every year, like, and you guys say nothing, I don't understand. We're talking about people carrying a loaded concealed weapon in public. This is not something within their home, within their own personal property. This is out in public. And this is a privilege to people that we grant for meeting certain requirements. Those requirements are dropping, and they shouldn't be doing that. They should be, you should want the highest standards amongst gun ownership. You want the highest standards of people that you associate. Let's have that discussion. Let's not have this one. I know what I was coming into coming here today, that this is not a group of my buddies, so to speak. But, I understand that you guys are afraid. You guys are fearful when you go onto college campuses. I understand that. I was in a situation where I almost was killed on college campus. People look very surprised that I'm not going to carry a gun with me everywhere I go now. And I just don't want to live in a free country where my freedom depends on something on my side. I don't think that is working towards a free country. I think working towards a free country is to allow to live without worried about getting shot going down the street, going to the supermarket, going to your college campus. I mean, that's what we should be working for, not the other way around, in my opinion. But, I'm trying to deal with that fear. And like I said, I'm dealing with that fear by looking further upstream instead of at the last possible second. And I would encourage everyone here to redirect their efforts, to look upstream, to look before the situation that you never want to have happen happens. And when we can do that, we can make some positive progress. Like I said, that not only will reduce crime or violence on college campuses, but just about anywhere. If the general idea that more guns in our country would make us safer was true, then the United States of America should already be one of the safest countries in the world. And we're not. So, that's all I really have to say. So, thank you very much.